Everyone, Will DuPree here in the KXAN live studio. We do appreciate you all joining us. What we're asking is that you gather any kids that are in your house because we want to provide a little bit of a fun educational video and a chance to answer some questions here this morning for anybody whose kids are not in school, which is most likely everybody because all the schools are temporarily closed across the state because of the COVID-19 outbreak. Joining me this morning here in the studio is meteorologist David Yeomans. David, thank you so much for being here.
Will, good morning. Nice to be here with you for the second weekly edition of this Friday morning tradition we've started. And a reminder, all these folks can see these videos anytime if you want to, kxan.com/FWWU, which is right behind you there.
And we've also included a link to that in our Facebook Live description. If you're watching on Facebook, it is there. First of all, David, explain again what we're doing here. To tell people, we've been thinking about providing additional educational supplemental materials for people whose kids are still at home at the moment. So talk about what we're doing at the moment.
Well, I get it through my sister, if through nobody else. She's a full-time worker who is having to work from home while her husband also works full-time from home and has a 2- and 5-year-old at home that they have to entertain. So we thought, we'll take this existing resource that we have. We've been doing these for 8 or 9 months, I think. 14 of them are on the website now. And we'll just feature one of them every week. So we can talk about them with the kids. We can all watch it together. And most importantly, perhaps, you guys can ask us questions in real time on this Facebook feed and anywhere else where you're watching it. So we hope to just provide a cool educational resource, a way to mix up the kids' day, the parents' day, hopefully provide a little bit of relief. And also, of course, I want to teach you about weather because it's been my passion since I can remember, 6 or 7 years old.
And what I love is that we were talking last week about what inspired you to become a meteorologist, and it was really an interest in weather as a kid.
Yeah, just watching the weather and curious about how lightning forms, or why does it snow, why is it so windy. And actually, everything I just said except for snow, we already have a video for it. How does lightning form? Why does the wind blow? These are all things that are really interesting for me to dive into, and I love teaching kids and people about the weather when I go on school visits and stuff. So this has really been a passion project of mine. It's been a lot of fun.
I'm seeing in the Facebook Live comment section at the moment, there are some people who are now watching with their kids, so we do appreciate that.
Yeah, tell me how old they are. Tell us where you're watching from, what part of town, or if you're outside of Austin, too.
We do have one person who listed their child's age. This is Brittany King. She says she's watching with her 11-year-old.
Wonderful.
We appreciate that.
Brittany King and 11-year-old, thank you guys for watching.
So, David, tell us what we're going to be watching with this video that we're about to play.
Okay, so today's that we decided to feature is relevant because tomorrow morning there's a chance of rain. And sometimes when people say, well, there's a 50% chance of rain, sometimes the misconception is, well, the meteorologist just doesn't know if it's going to rain. It sounds like a coin flip, right? It might not. What an easy prediction, because you're always right. That's not what it means. So we wanted to, in the simplest way possible for adults and for kids, explain what that chance of rain, which is 30% tomorrow morning, what does that actually mean?
All right, so let's get to the video. Again, this is the First Warning Weather University video featuring David Yeomans.
We've all heard a meteorologist say there's a 20% chance of rain, but what does that really mean? You may think that the chance of rain is the probability that it will rain at all that day. So there's a 20% chance that rain will develop near you and an 80% chance that rain won't develop at all. But it's a little more complicated than that. Here at KXAN, we forecast the weather for 15 counties, which is a pretty big area. When we say on TV that there is a 20% chance of rain, what we're saying is 20% of the land in central Texas is going to see rain. Now, if that happens, 80% of the land in those 15 counties would stay dry. It's not about you, it's about the land. And here's why. If people were scattered evenly all over central Texas, then 20% of the people would see rain that day. But the thing is, more than half of our population is in just one of those counties, which makes predicting the chance that you will get rained on a little more difficult. So the next time you hear a forecaster say that there's a high chance of rain and you don't see a drop, remember that the land elsewhere probably did.
All right, everyone, that was David Yeomans' video with talking about what a chance of rain actually means, and David and I were talking before we came on, and I also did not know this until I put this video into our system yesterday, so I think it's a really educational thing to share.
It's something some people have never thought about, which is, I don't blame you, and some people have a misconception about, so hopefully that video made it a little more clear. And as we talked about last week, I got to give my producer and animator Eric Henriksen full credit for all of those cool cartoon animations that really bring these words to life. like we saw in that video. So as we were talking about in the video, guys, it doesn't mean if I say, let's say a 20% chance of rain, like we just said, that doesn't mean there's a 20% chance that rain might develop and an 80% likelihood that it probably won't. It means that our whole area that can watch me on TV, 15 counties, you know, Austin is just part of one county. We've got 15 counties, which is miles and miles and miles of area. I think that 20% of that area is going to get rain, and 80% of that area is not. So for the kids watching, 80% is bigger than 20%, right? So if there's a 20% chance it's going to rain, that means there's an 80% chance it's not going to rain, which means if there's a 20% chance of rain tomorrow morning, probably not going to rain where you are, right?
And again, as you said, David, there's a chance of rain tomorrow.
That's right. So tomorrow morning, I think it's 30% chance in my latest forecast. That means I think 30% of the area in central Texas, in and around Austin, should see some rain. Chances are, though, you probably won't.
Yeah. We have a lot of people watching on Facebook at the moment. A lot of
cool.
people are sharing their children's ages and whom they're watching with, which is incredible. I just want to give a little bit of a shout out to people because, I mean, there are so many commenting at the moment who are watching.
That's great.
David
Let's
this
give
morning.
them some shout outs. Who's watching out there?
We talked about Brittany King watching with her 11-year-old.
Yes.
We're talking about Angie Walker watching with her 6-year-old. Brittany with her 5 and 7-year-old,
Hey,
2
Brittany.
kids. Sarah with 3 children.
Wow.
Anastasia with a 10 and a 3-year-old, Nikki with an 8-year-old, Robert and Nicole with an 8-year-old, Heidi with a 5-year-old.
Wonderful.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Selena with her 8-year-old. I'm literally like it's just one after the other comments
so
from
great.
people watching with their kids. I do love that.
That's right. We're enrolling the young ones in the university. We call it university, but it's good for all ages.
I will
all the way down
say
to elementary
somebody
school.
did say that their child loves to talk about the weather at such an early age. Right here,
Hey.
okay. Carrie, watching with my 2.5-year-old JJ, who already loves talking weather. So maybe
Two
we'll
and a
see
half.
2.5-year-old, yeah.
JJ.
That's pretty talented. Yeah.
Got me beat. That's pretty good. Yeah. And anybody watching and the kids watching, I want you guys to shoot me an email anytime you want, david.yeomans@kxan.com. If you want to talk weather, if kids have questions about weather, I'm always happy to talk shop because that was me at that age, as I was discussing. So I always like to talk to kids whenever I can about it.
Yeah, and you're fortunate enough to get to go on some school visits every now and then. yeah.
Absolutely. Not these days with the
Right.
situation in which we find ourselves. I was supposed to have a few actually these coming weeks, but
Oh, wow.
here we are. I guess this will suffice. Hopefully we can reach you guys.
We're trying to reach them anyway.
Yeah.
What I will say, everybody who's watching at the moment, please, if you have a question for David, leave that in our Facebook Live
Yes.
comment section. Yesterday, we also fielded questions from people. And I'll also say, before we get to some of those, we're going to replay the video that David just shared a few moments ago.
Great.
So that if you missed it, we're going to put that out there again so that you can learn something else too. If you're ready, David, we can start with the questions too.
Okay, sure. Let's do
Okay.
it. Which comes first?
The first one is from Liz Carrera.
Okay.
She said, "Hello, my 5th grade class at Davis Elementary would like to know why hurricanes go from Africa to the U.S. and nearby areas. Also, what can we expect for hurricane season this year?" It may be a little early to say, but maybe there's some expectation there.
Great question. And hello to the whole 5th grade class. I hope you guys are watching with us this morning. There is actually a video. I'm not just making this up. We've talked about all these topics on our website, which is linked in this post, that explains how hurricanes form. But to get to your question, I'll do it backwards. What do we expect for this hurricane season? It's a little bit early. We've still got a couple months until June 1st when hurricane season officially starts in the Atlantic, which is where the storms come from for us. So it's a little early for predictions. One of the things that we do look for toward a prediction of, it might be an active season, it might be a calm season, is the pattern of El Nino. You guys have probably heard about El Nino. It's a multi-year cycle which goes on and off. And depending on which phase that's in, if it's on or off, let's say, that can make hurricanes more likely or it can make hurricanes less likely. It's going to be a complicated year when it comes to that because there is no El Nino or the opposite pattern, La Nina, so it's kind of a neutral pattern, what we call it. So that influence might be left up to question. I can tell you, though, as the earth warms and as the water warms in the Gulf of Mexico, we are seeing more intense hurricanes more frequently, so that might be a factor going forward for the next few years. Now, to get to the other part of your question, why do hurricanes form near Africa and they come our way? This is actually what I studied in grad school, so thanks for asking. Hurricanes form from their little clusters of thunderstorms off the coast of Africa that get blown toward the U.S. westward by the prevailing winds. So if you go outside on any given day in your backyard, the wind is blowing from the north or from the south or from the east. It changes a lot around here. If you're in certain areas of the globe, though, from the equator all the way up to the poles, there are actually prevailing winds in different directions that are almost always blowing that way. So out over the ocean, those prevailing winds off the coast of Africa are usually blowing from east to west. So as these little clusters of thunderstorms form off the coast of Africa, and then they move over that warm water, which is the fuel to grow a hurricane, they often get blown westward toward the Caribbean islands or toward America. So once they get toward America, there are more complicated steering patterns that can change the course of these storms. But that's why they often form. I think it's 80% of Atlantic hurricanes start out as a little thunderstorm off the coast of Africa. So great question. Thanks.
That is a really good question. I learned something too just now. Next question is from Dylan Kopecki.
Okay.
He is asking, if hot air rises, why is it hot at the ground and colder up high?
That's a great question. Very in tune. If hot air rises, why is it hotter at the ground and not up high? So it has to do with, let's zoom out. So you're an astronaut in space. You're looking at the Earth, and then the sun is hitting the Earth from 93 million miles away, right? When the sun hits the Earth, it heats up the Earth. Let's think of the Earth like a big, what do you heat up on the stove? How about a big meatball? And it's taking in the sun's energy just like it takes in your gas stove, right? So when the sun hits the Earth, just like your stove hitting that meatball, it warms up the meatball, it warms up the Earth. And then, as you get farther and farther away from the Earth, you're just in outer space. So there's nothing for that sun's energy to hit and to warm. The sun's energy just kind of goes through the nothingness of space without having that meatball to hit, if you will. This is my first time using the meatball analogy. So
it's making me hungry at the moment, yeah.
Basically, so if you keep heating up the Earth, that's going to make the ground and the air closer to the Earth hotter than the surrounding outer space around it. Now, does hot air rise? Yes, it does, but on a smaller scale. So when you see on a hot afternoon, sometimes there's a big mushrooming thunderstorm up in the distance. That is, on a smaller scale, a pocket of hot air from the ground rising up into the sky and creating this big cloud or a big thunderstorm. On a smaller scale, hot air does rise. We call that convection, just like what happens in a convection oven. That's hot air billowing up higher. That's on a smaller scale, but on the whole Earth's scale, it's always going to be warmer, closer to that meatball than it is out closer to space.
All right. Again, I'm getting hungrier by the moment.
I'm hungry too, I guess it's showing.
The third question we have, this comes from Babesh Nakrani. That person is asking, how is thunder generated? We hear it a lot here around Central Texas, so how is it generated?
How is thunder generated? So thunder doesn't happen without lightning. Lightning causes thunder. So lightning is what you see, thunder is what you hear. So if there is a thunderstorm, which is a rainstorm with lightning and thunder, right? I talked about the hot air billowing up into the clouds. You get these big thunderstorm clouds that might be 50,000 feet high. Airplanes fly at 30 or 40,000 feet. These things are really, really tall up into the atmosphere. So when you get that high, like we talked about, the air is usually colder up there. It's actually below zero. So instead of this cloud being made up of little water droplets, it's made up of little ice crystals up high. And the violent motions inside of that cloud bump these little ice crystals into each other millions and millions of times per second because there's so many of them inside of a big thunderstorm cloud. And when you rub ice on ice like that, it actually creates an electric charge. So the Earth doesn't like that because then it's uncomfortable. It says, oh, there's a charge up here. I'm going to balance it out on the ground with an equal opposing charge. If that's a negative charge up there, I'm going to make a positive charge on the ground because I need to be comfortable. I need to be the same. When those two charges build up enough, boom, it discharges, equilibrium is reached, the atmosphere is comfortable again, but then it constantly starts again, right? More charge builds up, lightning discharges that. So, to get to the thunder part, lightning is 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's hotter than the surface of the sun if you were to go out there and touch it. Lightning is only as thick as about a pencil. It's a little bit thicker than this card, but it has millions of volts of electricity, and it's 50,000 degrees. So when you heat up the air to 50,000 degrees in a split second just like that, that superheats the air, and it actually creates a sonic boom radiating out from that lightning strike. So when you superheat the air to hotter than the sun in a millisecond, it creates that audible boom, and it radiates away from the lightning strike. There's a fun trick that I'll tell you real quick. It's the 5-second rule. If you're watching lightning, which you can do so safely inside of your house, watch that lightning start a stopwatch when you see the lightning. And if 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, if 5 seconds goes by and then you hear the thunder, 5 seconds means it's 1 mile away. So if you carry that out, if the lightning was 10 seconds away, that means it was 2 miles from you, and you can kind of use that rule of 5 to see how far away it is.
Learning math as well today, too. Final question that we got from a viewer. Again, before we ask that, I'm just going to reset things a little bit. We're joining here in the studio with meteorologist David Yeomans. We're talking, of course, about First Warning Weather University. This is to provide some of the parents at home whose kids are also there a little bit of an educational material.
Yes.
So we're going to ask this last question. Hopefully, we'll be able to learn something from that, too. Stephanie Nicole is asking, why is it so hot in spring? Apparently, that is very pressing at the moment because we've seen the temperatures go up quite a bit.
Well, I suspect she's been outside this week. Why is it? Well, let's talk about why it gets hotter in the spring and summer than the winter, as a general answer to your question. In the winter, the Earth tilts away from the sun, at least our part of the northern hemisphere of the Earth, tilts away from the sun. So the sun hitting us is not very direct. It's at a less direct angle. So when sun hits you at a less direct angle, it's less powerful, so it doesn't warm you up as much. What happens in the spring is we tilt from winter mode back toward the sun, and that sun heats us at a more direct angle every day, so the sun starts to burn you faster. Sunburns happen more easily in the spring and summer, and it also heats us up faster. As for what we've seen this week, that was record hot for 2 days earlier this week. That's not supposed to happen. We hit 92, what was it, on Wednesday, and then 88 at the airport the following day, or was it Tuesday and Wednesday, earlier this week. We set 2 record highs in a row. So it's not supposed to be this hot in the spring. This weekend it'll feel a little bit better.
All right. Well, something to look forward to then. If you're just joining us, we're talking about First Warning Weather University, which has been put together by David Yeomans and one of our producers here, Eric Henriksen. These really incredible videos that are very educational and fun to watch. So before we go, I would like to show it one more time. If anybody who is watching, David, explain once again what they're going to see.
Yeah, so if you're just tuning in, or if you want to see it another time, I know it's a lot to take in. It's a 60 to 80 second video on what a chance of rain means, and this applies to that chance of rain that we'll see right here tomorrow morning.
We've all heard a meteorologist say there's a 20% chance of rain, but what does that really mean? You may think that the chance of rain is the probability that it will rain at all that day. So there's a 20% chance that rain will develop near you and an 80% chance that rain won't develop at all. But it's a little more complicated than that. Here at KXAN, we forecast the weather for 15 counties, which is a pretty big area. When we say on TV that there is a 20% chance of rain, what we're saying is 20% of the land in central Texas is going to see rain. Now, if that happens, 80% of the land in those 15 counties would stay dry. It's not about you, it's about the land. And here's why. If people were scattered evenly all over central Texas, then 20% of the people would see rain that day. But the thing is, more than half of our population is in just one of those counties, which makes predicting the chance that you will get rained on a little more difficult. So the next time you hear a forecaster say that there's a high chance of rain and you don't see a drop, remember that the land elsewhere probably did.
I just have to say, David, those illustrations that Eric has done are so much fun and so cool.
He's so great, yeah. And we've now named that little guy.
Oh, really?
His name is Sonny Coriolis, which is a weather term. So Sonny Coriolis is popping up on more and more of our videos.
He is in all of them, it seems like. I was going to say before we go, thank you all for watching. First of all, it's been so much fun just to look at the comments on Facebook because so many people are watching with their kids right now, which is exactly what we wanted with this. Yeah.
That's so great.
Before we go, though, I want to say this weekend we're going to be seeing a potential for rain. Speaking of what we're talking about today, very appropriate. Can you explain what we're going to see this weekend?
Yeah, so today it'll be close to 90, Will, again, just like yesterday with some afternoon sun. That sky on the Austonian live. I love that we have that camera back here. That will be brightening up later today, so a nice day to take a walk outside. The next couple of days, we have a cold front that arrives tomorrow morning. So the cold front is going to bring a couple little scattered showers, a 30% chance of rain when you wake up tomorrow in Austin. But then it's gone, and it'll be about 10 degrees cooler Saturday and Sunday, closer to 80. Saturday night and Sunday morning, I'm issuing a beautiful weather advisory, if that were such a thing. Sunday morning, we're going to wake up close to 50, Will. It's going to be clear and crisp. The humidity is going to leave us at least for one night and one morning. So Sunday morning, maybe you can take that jog on a non-crowded trail or area, of course. And we were talking about the allergies as well, Will. The weather this weekend looks good, but when you're windy and dry like we have been this week, it's not. Now you're starting to hear it on my voice too.
Mine as well.
Oak allergies, grass allergies. These are all March problems that many of us face, and I'm right there with you. These are going to be high. What would help the oak allergies right now is some heavy rain, and I just don't see that coming until early next week. That'll be our next chance of that.
So keep the allergy medication very handy at the moment.
Yes.
I will say that if you've been hearing me this week, not only have I've been talking a lot, but the allergies, the seasonal allergies, always have an effect on my voice.
Sure.
And it has like been the perfect storm hitting at this exact moment. So I appreciate everybody bearing with me as I've been kind of like struggling to speak some of these days.
And he appreciates your concern, but
Yes.
it's just allergies.
It's just allergies.
Promise.
I promise. I deal with this every single year, unfortunately. I know. David, before we go, is there anything that you would want to add about what we can look forward to this week? And maybe tell people we'll be back next Friday.
Absolutely. So yeah, on my Instagram, which is right there on your screen, I'm actually featuring one of these every day. So you can check that out. We're also making Facebook posts daily, except for over the weekend because kids can take a break on the weekend. So you can check out the videos there. We'll also be back next week right here at this time, 9:30 on Friday. So make an appointment, assuming the situation hasn't escalated further and we still find ourselves in this building. But yeah, it's such a treat to have you guys, and I'm looking over at the viewer counts. Those are through the roof. So thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day. Hopefully it breaks up the day with the kids, and hopefully we can all learn something. And you can all check out those videos anytime on the website too.
Yes, they're there. Our links are all available on our website, KXAN.com, and the KXAN News app, so we do appreciate you all joining us.
Yeah.
David, I think that you've been a great teacher.
Thanks,
and
man.
providing some good information for everybody who's watching. So thank you once again for everybody who's been sitting there with their kids. We've had a lot of commenters say they're doing just that.
Great. I sure appreciate it. So go get some fresh air over the next few days, guys, and thanks again for tuning in.
All right, once again, that is David Yeomans, and I'm Will DuPree here in the KXAN Live studio. We'll be back throughout the day with additional updates about all the developments that are happening related to the COVID-19 outbreak. So please stay with us.